My name's Scott Medlock. I'm an attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project in Austin. I'm the prisoner's rights attorney. I was hoping today that we could convince the county that it's not good to be in the business of imprisoning children. Whether or not the moral argument for not imprisoning children is extremely strong, and that's an argument that the county doesn't appear willing to take seriously. I was hoping the county would at least then consider the economic realities of the difficulties of running a constitutional and safe prison. Even when you're dealing with people who are nonviolent immigration civil detainees, there's a lot of problems with running a prison safely and constitutionally. There are reports all around the country of detainees in these type of for-profit detention centers not receiving proper health care, for example. There's huge potential liability if someone is the victim of medical malpractice or constitutional rights violations related to not receiving proper health care in a facility like this. And that's something that the county doesn't seem to be taking seriously. Being indemnified $250,000 is not enough. There's a lot more potential liability there, and it might cost more than $250,000 just to defend the suit, just to pay the attorney's fees they're going to need to pay. It's disappointing that the county is so intent on focusing on this punitive, unnecessary prison for children, that they're even willing to ignore the economic realities of what it's very probable that they will incur in the future. Well, I haven't seen the contract. From what I understand from what they just described is that the county will be indemnified up to $250,000 for violations of civil rights that might take place at the facility. Basically, that means that CCA will front those costs up to $250,000. An encouraging development is that the CCA is going to pay for a county monitor to be at the facility, to be another set of eyes on what's going on out there. Unfortunately, the CCA is only paying $5,000 a month for that position, which is unlikely, makes it unlikely that any much real monitoring is going to be able to take place. Also, it is somewhat concerning that CCA is going to be paying the monitor's salary. There have been well-documented problems where who is watching the watchman when these type of private prisons pay for their own supervision in the past. You don't have to look very far to the Coke County Juvenile Correction Facility that was recently shut down under absolutely squalid conditions, where the Texas Youth Commission employees who were supposed to be monitoring the place were actually on the GEO Group payroll. That's how these private prison companies do business. It's not a secret, and the county isn't taking these concerns seriously. Well, first, it's very difficult to explain the Texas Tort Claims Act in under 3 minutes. I wasn't here last time. I don't know exactly what the CCA attorney had, but they weren't taking the perspective that this was someone who is an interested party, and he's probably not giving you the full legal picture. What he's saying, from what I understand, is probably correct. There are some avenues of relief that would be foreclosed because of the Texas Tort Claims Act. There are other avenues, constitutional avenues, the suits that are most likely to be brought against the facility that are not foreclosed. It may be more difficult to attach liability to the county without the TTCA as a vehicle, but it's certainly not impossible. My office does it every day. We've sued facilities in a similar type of relationship where there was a private prison company, a county, and the federal government involved. We've settled those suits successfully. A savvy plaintiff's attorney is not going to be deterred by the arguments that they were making. They know how to get around these arguments, and it's not a big deal to do it. It may make things a tiny bit more difficult, but if a lawyer knows what they're doing, it's not going to be any huge deterrence. The commissioners seem to be paying attention, but it's hard. It's hard for 3 minutes to explain these complex issues. You have to explain there's state law, there's federal law, and if they've only gotten one side of the story before, it's hard to get them to understand during public comment what the issues are. We'd previously sent them a letter, which I would hope that they would have looked at, would have consulted with some independent counsel about, but that appears not to have been the case.
And were you expecting them to ask you questions or ask for clarification about the legal arguments you were making about their liability?
I was certainly prepared for that, and I'd hoped that if they had some questions, they would have asked me, but I don't think that they were really interested. They'd heard the side of the story they wanted to hear, and they may have seemed to pay attention while I was speaking, but I don't think they were really listening to what I was saying and considering it thoroughly. I think that the commissioners would want to get different perspectives. I mean, obviously the perspective of a lawyer who would be defending CCA in the suit is important. That's who the counties would likely be relying on if they were to get sued. I think that in this sort of environment where something hasn't happened yet, the county is thoughtfully considering whether or not they want to continue with this relationship. It makes just as much sense to get the perspective from somebody from the plaintiff's bar who can tell you, well, not everything that guy is saying is correct, and if we were to litigate the suit, we'd do it differently. I think that's an important perspective that the county should have taken more seriously. I can't comment on suits that might be being developed right now, but I can say that for-profit prisons and prisons in general are magnets for litigation. It's very difficult to run a constitutional prison, especially running it on the cheap. And that seems to be what CCA and Williamson County are intent on doing. I would not be surprised to see lawsuits related to violation of detainees' civil rights in the near future.